to get some information here on Father that I can use sometime in the future, or that any of us can use, and I was wondering if you could give us a little background. For example, where was Father born? I never quite had that.
He was born down there in the old farmhouse near Hearst High School, where it is today.
Yeah, I remember him pointing that house out.
Yeah, the house he was born in was torn down before you ever saw it.
That's right. Well, what was his father doing then?
Farming on shares for John Riley.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything about Father in his younger days as a baby?
Oh, I remember we had a teacher boarded with us that time, Ada Fausold, and she carried him around on a pillow. Sam was an awful little baby.
Is it true he was small enough to put in a bottle? Did I hear that?
A quart jar.
Oh, I thought
That's
I heard
the
that
story. I don't know how true that was.
Can you tell me any anecdotes or anything about his youth that would be of interest to his children, to us?
Not as a real little fellow. He wasn't very old when he would.
Of course, how old were you? You're 10 years older than Father.
No. Oh, no. I'm only 9 years older than Charles. I'm 7 years older than your father was.
Oh, I see. But you were old enough to remember when he was born.
I remember of a few incidents.
Can you recall any of these?
I remember Grandma Hayes coming down. Father went up to Lysippus to get her and brought her down to, she looked after Mother and the baby. And one of the Immel girls, either Harry Pershing's wife or Dave Ackerman's wife, was working for us at the time.
Well, let's see. John, of course.
No, he was only 2 years older than your father.
Mm-hmm. Well, Father went to school, first grade, started at 6 years of age.
I suppose so, or even a little before, because Father was great in getting us. I went to school a little before I was 5.
Oh, is that right? Well, where did Father go to school?
Well, he started at Oak Hill, right out there at the old home as you know it.
Oh, yes, I don't recall. The school still isn't there, of course.
It's made over into 4 apartments.
Oh.
The building's standing, of course not the building your father and I went to.
Oh, yes, now I know where it is.
Yes, up on the
That's
hill
right.
there.
Exactly so. Well, do you remember anything about the type of record he made in school?
Oh, he was
it unusual?
He was a good little boy in school. I remember him telling, I don't remember this happening, but I remember him telling about Squire Graham. He was doing something one day he shouldn't have been, and he came back and with a ruler hit the desk that almost floored him, the noise he made.
Floored Father.
Yes. Of course, he wasn't very old, but he was doing something he shouldn't have been doing, which was unusual, really, for him.
Mm-hmm. When did he start doing chores on the farm?
Oh, well, that would be early, that he'd start doing little things, carrying in a little bit of coal and bringing in the chopped kindling ready for fire in the mornings. And he wouldn't be very big when he'd start doing helping to gather eggs. And
how long did the school session last?
It was only 7 months then.
7 months. And he stayed at the Oak Hill School?
Until he went to Latrobe
High School.
High School.
9th grade, that would be.
No, he started in 6, 8. He took the 8th grade. What was the 8th grade then? He took the 8th grade in the Latrobe Public School, and went from there into the 4-year, the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades of. I think I'm right in saying that.
Well, before we talk about his high school life. Those years in which he was in elementary school, what was his relationship with his father? Was it a close relationship? Or?
Well, that's my father was a different disposition than your father. He was good to us. He was kind. He wasn't a talkative man. He didn't sit down and talk things over with us. My mother did that.
Mm-hmm.
She was the interpreter for father.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it true that Grandpa Fausold had quite a bad temper? Or is this just, I don't know when I'm correct in this or not.
Well, he was rather quick-tempered. And yet he had a multitude of friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Of all creeds. When he was hurt, how many of the priests, as they were driving from St. Vincent up to the church in the mountains there, Chestnut Ridge, how many times they stopped during the month that he lived after his accident to know how he was.
Well,
they don't do that with all Protestants.
I wouldn't think so. What do you attribute this?
Well, he was a politician. My father
Was?
was a politician through and through.
Did he run for public office?
Oh, he was elected justice of the peace.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing he ever... Well, he was a tax collector when I was a little girl. That was before John was born, even.
And he was justice of the peace for many, many years?
Many, many, many years.
This is an elected office,
oh, yes.
As you say. Was he ever defeated?
No, there was one time he thought he was. He was elected by 3 votes.
Was this in the primary or in the election?
No, this was in the general election.
He was almost defeated by a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Was Grandpa Fausold a rather enlightened man?
Yes, he was. He was ahead of his times,
well,
just like your father was.
Pretty much self-educated.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Had he had
yes.
any public school?
Oh, yes. Well, he went to public school, and he taught public school.
Oh, did he?
Sure. He taught a year or so even after they were married.
Mm-hmm.
Mother went to school to him.
Is that right? Well, he probably only had about 7 or 8 years.
I suppose. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
As I can look back now, his English wasn't very good.
Oh, no, this is what we want.
Family.
Oh, yes, this is what this is for. And I'm a historian, you know, and I'm seeking the truth. My brothers and sisters sometimes get disturbed when I say we should look into the Indiana situation and find out whether there were 2 sides to that picture. I only say this because I'm really trying to seek the truth here and find out what really was the case. Father never really talked to us about his home life. I guess he did on occasion, but I don't remember. He used to reminisce, it is true, but I never really got the full story. Maybe it was my own fault for not inquiring
well, of
about
course, he got part of that from his own father, and my father got it from his father, from my grandfather.
He did in the last few years talk
yes,
about
after he
part
wasn't,
of that.
after his retirement.
That's right. Well, getting back into his youth, what was his relationship with John and Uncle Charles?
Oh, they were...
Very close?
Oh, yes.
Is it true that
they did their scrapping like all boys do in a family.
Well, he hit Uncle Charles in the head with a hatchet once. That was strictly an
Well, that was an accident. He was chopping kindling wood, and he was rather young, I suppose, to be doing that, and Charles got his, as the saying is, got his nose in where he had no business. But I know Mother was scared.
Yeah. Now, to get this situation straight, Fred Daniels was raised in the family, wasn't he?
Yes.
And Carl.
Yes.
What was Carl's last name?
Snidely.
Snidely. How did the five boys get along?
Oh, boy. All right, only the reason I'm hesitating, they were away an awful lot. They were, as these boys were growing up, John was away working, and your father and Charlie were in school.
Well, let's see. But Fred and Carl were considerably younger.
Well, that's what I
Right.
say.
No,
They were away.
no.
Your father and Charles were away at school, and John was away working.
And Carl and Fred were just really growing up.
Yes, yes.
So when Father was raised, and Uncle Charles and the family, as young boys, Fred and Carl weren't on the scene even. Let's see, Father's about 10 years older than Fred, or more than that?
Oh, more than that.
15.
Well, Fred was born in, this is taking too much time.
Well, I can stop this one. I mean, I promise you.
The evening that Grace was to be married, Mother told the boys that day, and they didn't even know the name of the fellow she was going to marry.
Mm-hmm.
See, she had been teaching in Mount Pleasant and got acquainted with Fred's father,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't around home. He was out. He brought her home on a Sunday and would be there for dinner and so on, but that didn't mean much to
Yeah.
the brothers because they were.
But this is now Fred. Let's see now. Let me get this straight.
Oh, I was 21 when Fred was born. Well, then, and John was 5 years younger, so he would be 16 and your father would be 14.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, I think I'm right on that.
Yeah. Fred's. Who was born first? Carl or Fred?
Carl's 3 years older than Fred.
All right, and Fred's father was Carl Snidely.
No, that was Carl's father. Fred's father is Fred Daniels.
Yes, I mean Carl's father.
Yes.
He was
Bert Snidely.
he was an attorney, wasn't he?
Yes. Oh, he was a teacher before that.
Mm-hmm. Well, was there any recourse as far as Aunt Grace is concerned? In other words, Carl was born illegitimately. And there was
Yes.
no attempted marriage or anything
No.
like this. Now, Fred, Aunt Grace married. Aunt Grace's first husband was
Bert Daniels.
Daniels, and
He's a Spanish-American veteran.
mm-hmm. And
Spanish War.
where did they live?
Mount Pleasant. And then moved to Latrobe. But they started housekeeping in Mount Pleasant.
Well, did he die?
He was, he left Grace.
I
She
see.
come home
Mm-hmm.
with Fred.
I see.
And then Fred was 6 or 7 years old. And Bert always worked in the mine. He wasn't a miner as we know them, but he was some kind of an inspector, and he was walking back in the mine, and he'd left the men, the workmen, and they knew that he'd gone back and didn't come out again.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them went in to investigate, and they found him lying there dead, and they investigated and found a live wire. And there was just a little mark on his nose. So that's how he met his death.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred was about 6 or 7 years old. Grace took him and went down to Mount Pleasant, went to the funeral. Mother went along.
But you said that Fred's father left Aunt Grace.
Yes.
Before this.
In Latrobe, when they lived in Latrobe.
Mm-hmm. And then Aunt Grace came home.
Yes. She went out to Michigan and taught for a year.
Mm-hmm. And it was many, many years before she married Uncle Tim.
Oh, yes.
How
She
old?
didn't marry Tim until after Mother's death in 1916.
And where did she meet Uncle Tim?
Oh, well, he was an old-time neighbor out there.
Oh, I see.
We knew him from the time we were little kids. Even when we lived down where your father was born, he came down there and stopped one evening. He wanted to sell an old lame horse. He was sort of a dealer in horses at that time.
And when they married, they stayed on the farm then?
Yes. They bought the farm. Bought the rest of us out.
Bought it from Uncle Charles. Was he around there as
They bought it
executor?
bought it from all of us.
Yeah, oh yes, bought it from all of you. But
Yes.
didn't I understand that Uncle Charles came home and settled that estate, or what am I
Your
thinking?
father did it more than your Uncle Charles. They were the two executors, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's the type of background I wanted now to get back into Father's youth a little bit. There were the 5 children then
Yes.
that were around home all of that time. And Father, I presume, was much impressed by Grandpa Fausold's interest in public affairs. And I remember Father saying that the one thing he read was the newspaper.
Oh, we got the Pittsburgh Post. Always, as long as I can remember, we got the Pittsburgh morning paper.
Well, let's stop this on there while okay, what were you going to say about your mother?
My mother was very kind and very loving disposition, and Father's sort of cold-heartedness, I might say, towards us, Mother tried to make up for his. He had great respect for us and for what we did. He was very proud of anything that we would achieve, but he didn't let us know like you would your children, for instance, as they get older and do things where you'll praise them. Father did it just to himself, or maybe he'd say something to Mother. Yes.
What was the nature of the relationship between your parents and Grandpa Fausold and Grandma Fausold?
Very, very devoted to one another.
But I have heard on occasion, and I think I've heard you say, or others, that although the relationship was a very fine one, he wasn't as considerate as he might have been. I remember hearing stories of Grandpa Fausold apparently watching Grandma Fausold carry a sack or something, or is this way off?
That's
Okay.
you're off on that.
I don't know where
Father was
that.
very considerate. For instance, he would get something at the barn. There was something bought in the house for Mother's benefit. We used, don't know the day that we didn't have a hand washing machine that we youngsters worked. And that was an unusual thing. People would come into the house and they'd want to see it just like they'd want to see the first electric washer, first automatic.
Well, okay, that corrects that
Yes,
misconception, which really I had. I don't know what.
Yes, that's
Check
wrong.
that out. Grandpa Fausold, was he successful economically in terms of an income?
Well, he was just an ordinary farmer, and I will say he always paid his debts. We never ran a store bill, never. That was never known for us to run a store bill. And he kept his doctor's bill paid, and he was a regular contributor to the church. That's the reason that as we grew up, we learned that I never knew anything else than to give to the church.
He wasn't a tither, though, or he didn't?
No, they didn't do those
No.
things. That is, in our church, they didn't do it. They didn't ask for it. In fact, they don't stress it too much yet today, and I think they should. Spoyer has talked a little bit more about it than any other minister I ever heard. So, of course, Father wasn't a tither, but then he gave regularly.
Yes.
And he would give us a little collection. Of course, it didn't amount to much, but then in that way we learned to give.
He had a store during most of
Just
Father's
a short
youth.
time.
Oh.
It wasn't long. I would say in the neighborhood maybe of 5 or 6 years.
Was this when Father was going to high school or before? Or?
That was very well. I'm thinking of the. We were in Lysippus. We lived in Lysippus for several years and had the store up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got the tenant, I might call him, out of the house, and we moved back. And then he built that little store there that Grace used as a garage.
Yes.
And finally sold out because it was too hard on Mother. He would be out working and people would come and she'd have to go up and wait on them, and he found out it was too hard for her, so he sold out.
But he was never really able to support the family on that one farm, isn't that correct?
Well, he worked Harry Anderson's farm on shares.
And did that during most of the time, and the children grew up, is that correct?
Well, maybe 10 years
Mm-hmm.
that he did that. Mother used to say that one day Father was very rich, and the next day he would say he didn't have one red cent to rub against another.
Well, did he have a savings?
No.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bank account. He always had a bank account, but then the trouble was he would buy something and then he'd have to check out what he had in the bank. But I remember different times depositing money in the bank for him. That was after I began teaching.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the education of Uncle Charles and Father at Gettysburg, how could he afford this?
Well, Grace and I helped out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was teaching, I was in southwest Greensburg then, and somebody rapped on the door one day, and I went, and there was your father standing.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me if I would give him so much a month to help him in school that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him I would, and did.
Did he pay his back?
He paid every penny back.
Mm-hmm.
Charles did.
Let's see. As Father grew up, I don't want to push this point too far, but I have to have some explanation for this. The Father absolutely was a total abstainer from the use of alcohol. And I always had a feeling that this is explained in terms of something in the family. Now, Uncle John, I know, drank on occasion to excess. Is this what made Father feel this strongly, this way?
No, I don't believe it was. My father would take a drink of beer
Mm-hmm.
on occasion, very seldom.
Mm-hmm.
But John when he was working at Keck's store, they were Germans. Old man Keck came from Germany, and he always had drink around. And that was where Mother always, and Father did too, and so did Uncle Harry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talked it over with Father and said that was where the boy got started. Unknown to us for a time, of course.
Keck's store?
In Kecksburg.
In Kecksburg. That's a good distance from. You mean Uncle John was working over there?
Yes. Well, he was in his late teens.
Yes, I guess it wasn't
early 20s.
that he drank so much, but he just could not handle it.
Couldn't carry it.
Yeah.
I remember hearing my father say that.
Well, did Uncle John drink to excess, really? I mean, was he drunk very frequently?
No.
This was not too frequent. Perhaps later in his life.
He may have been. That was after I was in Pittsburgh and I wasn't around. After Mother's and Father's death, I wasn't around so much. Mm-hmm. And so that I myself didn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
Grace would tell me occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that Grace I think, put up more with them than I would have.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have gotten more provoked because I just couldn't stand
You couldn't stand it. No. How do you explain the fact, then, Eddie, if you can, that Father and Uncle Charles, as the men in the family, were reasonably successful? And although we all had great respect for Uncle John, I did too, personally. I liked him very much. But why did he not?
He didn't
achieve
like
success?
school.
Mm-hmm.
He had the chance. Father sent him to, he and Sam went into Latrobe to grade school together, rode bicycles.
Now, wait a minute, you said Father went to Oak Hill.
Well, but then this was just the last year before he started into high school.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, that was where your father and Charles had the advantage over Grace and me. We didn't get a high school education because the boys could hitch up the horse in the morning and go and take care of in Latrobe and so on. Well, we couldn't. Two girls couldn't do that in those days.
Mm-hmm. And as Father and Uncle Charles were going to school in at Latrobe, they would get up quite early in the morning and do the chores.
Oh, Mother always said she never, in the winter, short days, she didn't see them in daylight all week until Saturday and Sunday.
Except at the table.
Well, she didn't see them in daylight, I
Oh,
say.
daylight, yes.
They would start to Latrobe, because remember in those days the roads were very bad in the winter, and it would take at least an hour driving into Latrobe.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they'd have to get there in time they rented a stable that they kept the horse in during the day, and they'd have to get in time to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they left early and got home. It would be after dark till they'd get home in the winter months.
Mm-hmm.
But John didn't like school, and he begged them to let him stop school and go to work. He always loved horses. He worked for Tim for quite a while.
Oh.
I mean, long before Father's death.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reason that... And Mother was always afraid that he would regret it someday and would talk about it, that Sam and Charlie had a chance at an education, and he didn't, but he never did. He never said a word. He never...
I always have so feeling that Uncle John's life was kind of a pathetic one.
Well,
Did he enjoy himself? Did he enjoy life? It's kind of a ridiculous question.
Yes, I think he did. But his...
How about his married life?
Well, there was the... because he was drinking some. Because he just...
Mm-hmm. Married a very fine girl, didn't he? I mean, Grandma Fausold thought highly of his wife, didn't she?
She was all right, yes. She was...
Well, what kind of... who was she?
Lizzie Marks. She was John's equal.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, she was just as good as he was, and when they were married, and proved to be better in the end, because John did not do for the family like he should have. If he had been, he was spending his money on liquor, which he shouldn't have been doing. That's getting pretty well filled up. Are you watching it?
Oh, yes. We've got all
This to go here to see. We haven't used half of it yet. And then we've got the other side.
we don't have to tell all this stuff. Is Uncle John's wife still living?
No. She died a couple of years ago. Took pneumonia and died.
But she lived in that area, did she?
They,
Up at the old homestead there someplace?
well, they lived between our place and Lysippus.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
And did she marry,
She married a man by the name of, turned out.
Who'd she
She
marry?
married Ed Stairs
mm-hmm.
and had 3 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, we've talked somewhat about the chores around the farm and Father's going to school. And of course, the whole family was a strong church-going family.
Absolutely.